1% of dudes rapping, they ain't nice as me. 98% ain't live the same type of life as me. The judge gave me life and then they sent me where the life is be. That level 4 with depth and vice, the type of stuff they like to see. Two choices, fight or flee. I refuse to die a chump. I never been a mark, but damn, it's scary when that riot jump. I seen dudes cry, get pumped, and some sexually brutalized. Knew a dude who lost his life and he was only doing 5 year-long racial fights when homie all you do is ride. Lonely days and nights up in a hole causing suicide. From the moment you arrive, you see the Mexican mafia, AB skinheads with big giant swastikas, pro-black philosophers, the BGF, the Kumi, and Muslims who will murk you from the nation to the Sunni. That MS was loony, quick to ride up on they rival. Even Christians went to church, hide knives up in they Bible. Political and tribal, the Crips and Damus, the Long Beach, the Hubs and the Dubs and the Grooves, the IE, the Bakersfield, the Dago Pyrus, the Hustlers quick to roll, the Gangsters gon' move, whatever click you choose.
Say what's cracking, YouTube? It's your boy 16 to life, and I'm back like I'm on a parole violation. Yard down! Now, for those of y'all that's new to my page, in 1994, I got arrested. I was eventually sentenced to 16 years plus life, and I served 24 years straight in the California prison system. Yeah, that was me gassing right there on that intro song, and if you want to get that song, it is available only on a 10-song EP that you get straight from me on a digital download link. If you're interested, hit me up on my email, 16tolifemusic@gmail.com, Cashapp, PayPal, or Zelle me $20, and I'm going to get it to you ASAP. Also, if you're new to the channel and you want to binge watch on some of my older videos, I got some great stories, riots, DPs, hilarious stuff. Man, tap into my YouTube playlist, binge watch the best. Now let's hop right up into this video, man. So I'm going to be talking about today how I met an extremely notorious Asian gang member from the gang known as Waching. Now, to my understanding, Waching originated up in the San Francisco area, and then they had other factions that eventually trickled their way down into other parts of Southern California. China Dog, which is his name, was part of the Waching gang that was in the San Gabriel Valley, right? So now I know today having a video or a crime caught on tape doesn't seem like anything out of the ordinary, but this took place back in 1993, and that was something that was extremely unique to see a cold shooting caught on camera. And so, you know, like I said, today you see a lot of that, but keep in mind, this was 1993, and stuff like that just wasn't an everyday occurrence. It seems like today you can't do anything, especially out in public, without it being video recorded, being caught on camera, so on and so forth, man. So for those of you guys who may not be from California or may not be old enough to remember or just didn't hear about it, let me refresh your memory a little bit, right? So what it was is, now this individual, his street name was, like I said, China Dog, and he went from a gang, an Asian gang called Waching. And so on one particular night, you had their rivals, a gang called the Asian Boys, in a pool hall in El Monte. Now, there was an individual there, and his name was Kicker. His nickname was Kicker, and I believe his real name was Lay Mek. Now, they have a video of this, of course, and there was no sound on it, but to my understanding, there was 4 different cameras in that pool hall that night. And so you have Kicker walking around, you know, just doing his thing up in the pool hall, chilling, talking to females or what have you. And then at some point, it was reported that about 20 members of the Waching gang came up in there, and they are a rival of the Asian Boys. So according to the police reports, that there was some mad dogging going on between these two different gangs, you know, some staring or whatever. And so at some point, you know, words started being exchanged, so on and so forth. Now, Kicker, who I believe was a Cambodian, at some point, he flashes a pistol that he has tucked in his waistband, and he's talking stuff back and forth to the Wachings, and they're talking stuff, you know, back and forth to the Asian Boys or whatever. So according to the police reports, at some point, the Wachings, they decide to leave, you know, and so they're leaving, they're getting up out of there. Now, in my opinion, this is where Kicker, who unfortunately lost his life that night in that incident, this is where he kind of messed up, you know. He's walking around, he's already basically showed these other dudes, man, that, you know, I'm armed, I got a gun. And sometimes, having a gun can make us feel invincible, but he failed to realize that, that wasn't the only gun that made its way to the United States or wherever that gun came from. But once again, when you have a gun, sometimes you feel that, you are untouchable. And so as some of the watching dudes have left the pool hall, you still have a few just hanging around or whatever. And the dude Kicker, he's still walking around, talking tough or whatever he was doing that night. And so as he walks right past the other dudes to watching, and he happens to turn his back for 1 second, it said, well, actually they show it on the video. And when the watching dudes came up in there, I believe China Dog is the dude with the white t-shirt on. And so as he walks past China Dog and a few of these other dudes from watching, China Dog happens to grab this dude from the back. He grabs this dude from the back and he slams him to the floor. Now, when he slams him to the floor, you have some other dudes from watching right there, and a little like wrestling match, a tussling match kind of ensued. Then you have some of Kicker's homies from Asian Boys. They run over there with pool sticks or whatever, and they're trying to help, their homie out as he's on the floor. At some point in time, one of the Asian boys, he runs over and he gets a gun that's sitting on the pool table. I don't know if they had placed it there strategically or he set it there or whatever, but he knew the gun was there, and it was reported that it was a 32. He runs and goes and gets the gun, and he comes back to try to help his friend who's on the floor, but the gun jams. So now while all this is going on, the watching dudes, they're trying to drag Kicker outside, and they're over there, they're fighting, they're tussling or whatever. Now, of course, the watching dudes know that Kicker's got a gun, China Dog and his homies, because he's already flashed the gun on him. He's basically fronted his move, which was something that, of course, turned out to be extremely costly, right? So as they're trying to drag this dude, and they finally get him and drag him outside of the door, outside of the pool hall door, you have another dude from watching pop in, and he starts firing. He's shooting, doop, 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 doop. Then a couple of seconds later, China Dog, he pops back up with a gun, and he's shooting too. Now, as he's shooting, I guess Kicker has freed himself from the group that dragged him outside, and he runs back in, and it looks like he's either trying to tackle China Dog or take his gun back, but he doesn't succeed in doing neither one of those. And China runs and chases him down and pops him a couple of times, and then Kicker, he slides up under the pool table. China Dog follows him over there, and he pops him a couple of more times up under the pool table. Now, briefly, let me show you guys a commentary gave by one of the dudes who happened to be there at the pool hall that night. And to my understanding, this individual didn't belong to watching or the Asian Boys. He just happened to be there that night, chilling at the pool hall, playing some pool, enjoying the pool hall, or whatever he was doing. So briefly, let's check out what he has to say.
The bullet went from my head, but I could hear the wind, and then suddenly I feel my leg get shot. It was really scary. I thought they won't stop, I was like, what am I doing here? I'm not one of them, and I got shot,
And so, of course, all this stuff is caught on camera, and eventually the police get, they find out who they're looking for, and at some point in time, China Dog is arrested. So eventually he goes to court and he gets sentenced to a whole bunch of time. I believe it was 40 years to life, or maybe somewhere around there. I'm not quite sure exactly how much time he got, but he got a whole bunch of time, right? And so he stayed in the county jail a couple of years, as is normal when you're fighting extremely vicious charges, murder, and you're facing a lot of times. Sometimes an individual might sit in the county jail 2-3 years fighting his case. I've seen people actually sit in the county jail for 7, 8, 9 years, fighting a life sentence. So at some point, China Dog makes his way to Salinas Valley, and he happens to go to D-Yard around 1996, maybe 97. I can't remember exactly when it was that I ran across him, but I was sent to the same prison. So I didn't know who he was. I didn't know him or recognize him by face or anything like that. So I just happened to have a chance encounter with him. So now when you are on a 180, as Salinas was, everything that, well, like the canteen, the medical, the chaplain, all that is behind the gate. So you actually have to go through the gate. They open the door electronically. Before you go through there, you get searched, you get patted down to make sure, you don't have any weapons, any contraband or whatever. And then, so I believe that I was out there on this particular day. I was sitting on the bench, and I believe I was waiting to go to canteen. And the bench is rather small. It can only probably fit 3 or 4 dudes, probably only 3. So the bench is rather small. We're sitting there, I believe, waiting to get our names called, to hear our names called to go to canteen. And so as I'm sitting on the bench, these 2 Asian dudes, they're laughing, they're talking, clowning, just having a regular conversation. And one says to the other, "What you gonna do, Danny? Shoot me when I run under the pool table?" I believe he called the dude Danny, if I'm not mistaken. The dude who was talking, his name may have been Danny, but if my memory serves me correct, he called China Dog Danny, if my memory serves me correct. And so when he said that, then all of a sudden it dawned on me that that's who that dude must be, the dude from the pool hall shooting, because at that point in time, like I said earlier, that was a very popular, well-known, publicized case. That particular case had a lot of notoriety to it, and for anybody that watched the news like I did often, you definitely had seen that case. That case was all over the news on several different channels, so on and so forth. So the Asian dude who jokingly said to the other dude, "What are you going to do? Shoot me when I run under the pool table," or whatever. I knew him, or I had some type of rapport with him or whatever. I can't remember who that was. So I said to him, I said, "Hey man, that's that guy that shot the dude up under the pool table?" He said, "Yeah." So now as we're sitting there, I'm like, "Hey, you know what? Yeah, what's up?" And we talked a little bit, just real brief. I may have introduced myself or whatever, and then we went about our business. Periodically, as I would see him on the yard, I would speak or just say, "What's up?" But definitely due to the notoriety and the publicity of that case, I really couldn't believe, like, damn, okay, this is that dude that I seen on the news. And I think I failed to mention in the story that I was talking about earlier, at the time he committed that crime, he was only 18 years old. Like I said, I can't remember exactly how much time he got, but it was a large amount of time. He is out now, actually, though. I believe he came home in 2020, and I seen him getting interviewed on a channel known as Hood Stocks, and he said actually in that interview that before the laws change, allowing individuals who happen to commit their crimes under the age of 25, before those laws changed, he wasn't even scheduled to go to the board until 2034. So he'd still have another 8 years if those laws hadn't changed. He'd still be sitting in there to this day. And in this interview that I seen him in, you definitely can tell that he's changed and he's matured. Anybody that keeps up with the California prison genre or whatever you want to call it may have heard, of course, that the blacks and the Asians have a pretty good rapport with each other. We program on the same side of the day room. We share and use the same showers. We can spread with each other. We play basketball on the same courts, so on and so forth. So from time to time, if I happen to be cool with an Asian, I may ask him, "Hey man, you remember that dude who, had the pool hall shooting? Have you heard anything about him or whatever?" And anytime I would inquire, the Asians all would tell me who I asked about. "Oh yeah, man, he's with the business. He's with the business." Because despite the Asians beefing with each other on the street, they have a lot of gangs that don't get along on the street. When they come to prison, they're very small in numbers. So they set all that stuff to the side and they function under one collective. And so this is how probably some of the Asians who I would ask and inquire about how the dude was doing or whatever, that's probably how they would know about him, along with hearing about his case as well, because once again, that was very rare back then to have a murder on film like that. And they always say, "Oh, that dude is with the business, he's a writer," so on and so forth. So when I seen the interview, one of the first things he said is, "I disrespected God. I disrespected God because God creates life, and basically he had no right to take another life." So you could just tell by his answers, like many of us that had sat in prison for a long time, he had definitely matured. He had definitely done away with the gang thinking, the thinking of the streets, and he was remorseful about the taking the life of another human being. Anyway, like I said earlier, China Dog is home now after doing a considerable amount of time. I believe it was 20 plus years. I don't know exactly how much it was, but it definitely was a long time. And so that's my story right there of how I ran into one of the more notorious Asian gang members. Anyway, man, y'all already know what it is. It's your boy 16 to life. Resume normal program.